I don't like him in Philly. God damn, that's like the circus.
There is a decision unfolding right now that could reshape the balance of power in the entire league. It is being discussed in team facilities, in front offices, and across every major sports network, and the reactions are split right down the middle. Some see genius. Others see disaster waiting to happen.
The Sixers have to win the championship.
When a move of this magnitude enters the conversation, the stakes change instantly. There is no soft landing, no gradual adjustment period. The moment this becomes real, expectations shift from hope to demand. And that is exactly the storm we are about to walk through today. Over the next 15 minutes, we are going to break this down piece by piece. Why this rumor exists. What the actual basketball logic behind it looks like. How the receiving franchise would be forced to operate under a level of pressure very few teams have ever experienced. And why, according to those closest to the situation, this may be less about business and more about something far simpler, the refusal to stop competing at the highest level. Let's get into it. Every major story in professional sports tends to begin the same way. Not with an announcement, not with a press conference, but with a quiet comment that slowly builds into something impossible to ignore.
He told us it's about being happy. It's about playing with joy, all that stuff. It's about winning another championship.
That framing is worth sitting with for a moment. Happiness. But another championship. On the surface, those sound like simple, almost casual words. But in the context of a player this far into a legendary career, they carry enormous weight. This is no longer a conversation about contracts, endorsements, or securing a legacy that is already cemented. This is a conversation about motivation at its most basic level, the desire to still feel something on the court. That distinction matters because it changes the entire lens through which we should view whatever comes next. This is not a business maneuver dressed up as passion. According to those inside the conversation, the motivation is coming from the opposite direction entirely.
I think LeBron probably looked at this and said, what's the best chance to win a championship? Through the East, easier. I can get to another final.
This is where speculation starts to take on a sharper, more analytical shape. The suggestion here is not emotional at all. It is mathematical. A direct evaluation of conference strength, playoff pathways, and the realistic odds of reaching one more finals appearance. Championship windows do not stay open forever, and at this stage of a career, every single decision gets filtered through one question. Does this improve my odds of winning it all? The Eastern Conference, by most current evaluations, presents a more navigable route than the West. Fewer elite two-way rosters. A shallower bench of true title contenders. For a player thinking purely in terms of probability, that difference alone could be the deciding factor. This single statement may be the most revealing detail in the entire story because of what it rules out. Cleveland was reportedly part of the conversation. The hometown storyline. The narrative returned to where it all began. And even with all of that emotional weight attached to it, it's still lost out to Philadelphia in this particular breakdown. That tells us something important. If sentiment alone were driving this decision, Cleveland would almost certainly win that argument. The fact that it did not suggests something far more calculated is taking place. A pure, unemotional evaluation of which roster, which system, and which conference offers the strongest realistic path to a championship, regardless of history or nostalgia. It is worth remembering how rare this kind of decision-making actually is in professional sports. Most careers wind down guided by comfort, loyalty, or convenience. What is being described here is closer to a front office evaluation than a personal one, treating a Hall of Fame career, at its final stage, with the same cold analytical rigor a general manager would apply to a roster construction problem. It also raises a broader question about how modern superstars approach the later stages of their careers. In previous eras, players in this position typically stayed with one organization, accepting whatever outcome came with loyalty to a single franchise. That model has clearly shifted. Today's elite players increasingly treat their remaining prime years as a finite, valuable resource, one that should be deployed wherever it maximizes the realistic odds of a championship, regardless of market size or previous affiliation. That shift in mindset is not universally popular. Traditionalists argue it undermines the loyalty and continuity that once defined great franchises. Others argue it is simply an honest reflection of how short a competitive prime actually is, even for the greatest players in the sport's history. Wherever you land on that debate, this particular decision, if it unfolds the way it is being described, would become one of the more closely studied examples of that broader shift in action. Now shift the perspective to the other side of this equation, the organization that would be receiving this level of talent. Because adding a player of this caliber does not simply raise the ceiling of a franchise. It fundamentally changes what counts as success. And the standard being whispered around this situation is not compete or make some noise. It's championship or bust. Nothing less than a title would be considered a job well done, and that's an extraordinary weight to drop on a roster overnight. Every stumble in the regular season would be treated as a crisis. Every early playoff exit would be framed as proof of failure rather than part of a normal process. This is the reality that comes attached to championship or bust expectations, and it is a pressure very few rosters in league history have been able to sustain without cracking. And then there's the word that keeps surfacing every time this scenario is discussed: the circus. It is a strong choice of language, and it is not being used lightly. Philadelphia's sports media market has developed a reputation as one of the most demanding and unforgiving environments in professional sports. Patience is limited. Scrutiny is constant. There is very little room for a slow build or a gradual adjustment period. Now place one of the most closely watched athletes in the world into that exact environment, at this stage of a storied career, with championship expectations already fully formed before a single possession has been played. That combination does not just create pressure, it creates a situation where every outcome, positive or negative, becomes amplified far beyond its actual significance.